be right back to move it.
Massachusetts has such a thing, as you all know, expensive, inconvenient, difficult. I don't agree with it, but it's not impossible. It doesn't exist in New York.
Stop right there by the chair.
Thank you.
People who disagree with us say H.R. 38 creates a federal license. It doesn't create a federal license. It's real simple. It's elegantly simple. It says if you're legal to carry at home, you're legal everywhere else. That includes states like Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, West Virginia that don't require licenses. Arizona, Alaska, all those residents can carry everywhere else.
All right, my next speaker, got a tough act to follow, but if anyone can, it's my buddy Kirk Walley. He's been a regular fixture here. He's not only been a speaker, he's helped out with security at this event. He's actually donated, for those of you looking for some training, hit our raffle table up here, as you might win a couple of certification courses at Whatley Training, and thanks for that donation. There is also a couple of quick announcements here. There's a couple of 50-50s going on. You got a chance to win your money back. There's 50-50 at these tables here, just inside the door for the club. They've also got a gun that's being raffled off. So we're getting down to the end here. Good news, give you a quick report, is one of the mama bears I promised you has just come in. Barbara from Harlem is on site, and she's going to be taking the podium here not too terribly long. So as promised, we will have that presenter talk to you folks. But right now, I want to get back to one of the stalwarts, one of the great supporters of this rally, and great supporters of our Second Amendment, and that's Mr. Kirk Walley. Let's give it up for Kirk.
I'm not going to bend down. I'm going to assume y'all can hear me back there? Yes, no? Can you hear me, Jay? You can. Fantastic. Good to see you out there, Jay. Dave, I don't want to follow someone like Chris Ann. Again, that is an act I'm not going to be able to follow. I got a quick question for you guys. Did you guys see the news report about a year ago where 500,000 names are taken off the NICS database? Did you guys see that? Liberals had a field day with it. Anybody see that? Chris, I figured you would see that. Well, here's the deal. The federal government took 500,000 names off the NICS database. That's the database that they check gun purchases for. If you're on it, you can't get one. It's only as good as the information that goes in, however. Garbage in, garbage out, as we discovered down in South Carolina with dishonorably discharged Navy veteran. But there's something that they don't talk about also. 430,000 names out of the 500,000 names came from Massachusetts. And Chris, did you know that?
No, I didn't, sir.
You didn't know that. Do you know how you got your name on the NICS database from Massachusetts? You didn't pay your excise tax. If you didn't pay your excise tax, Massachusetts put your name on the NICS database. You could not buy a gun. Now, let me ask you another question. Keep that in mind. NICS database was created in 1994. It's supposed to have dishonorably discharged military personnel, spousal abusers, anybody that committed a felony. If you were a bad egg, your name was supposed to be on there. From 1994 to today, how many names has Massachusetts submitted to the NICS database? One. One name. If you're a felon in mass, if you're a wacko in mass, don't worry about it. You can still buy a gun. But if you didn't pay your excise tax, you are screwed. That's our state. And that is really too bad. Now, what I wanted to bring that up just as a point. A lot of numbers getting tossed out there, but I want to talk about something else out there. there is a word out there that makes me cringe and makes my skin crawl every single time I hear it, and that is silencer. Anybody ever shoot a gun with a sound suppressor on it, besides me? Does it make it silent, Joe? It doesn't. Silencer is a Hollywood myth. It's a made-up term. How many times have you watched a movie where a bad guy, or a good guy for that matter, uses a sound suppressor on a rifle? Hell, in John Wick 1, guy shoots a .50 caliber with a suppressor on it, and it sounds like a mouse passing gas on the other side of the pond from here. And that's it. That ain't the way it works. So I wanted to share with you just some information in general about sound suppressors. Because again, we are being lied to. First of all, I want to point out that there was a group that went to Boston and tried to have a hearing on sound suppressors on Beacon Hill. We had state legislators standing up at the microphone on record saying that hearing protection is a red herring. The only reason that somebody wants to have a silencer, as they called them there, was that you could kill a lot of people and not get caught. Which is, little ones around, which is BS. It is just simply not true. There are only 6 states in the country that you cannot own a sound suppressor in. Massachusetts is one of them. That leaves, 44 other states out there? Until recently, when that guy did it down in, I believe it was Virginia, a suppressor had never been used in a mass shooting. So, if the purpose of a suppressor is to kill a lot of people and get caught, I don't know, the states out west and the other 44 states really didn't prove that true. But then, let's go back to the Virginia situation. The police report stated the police entered the first floor, the shooter was on the second floor, and they quickly determined the shooter was on the second floor when they entered the first floor. How would you quickly determine somebody's on the floor above you? You'd hear them. And what did they hear? Maybe they heard some scrambling, but more than likely they heard some shots. I used to work for a suppressor manufacturer. I can tell you, putting a suppressor on a 45 does not make it quiet. It hardly does. And I've got some numbers to run through you here. So we are being drastically misled by Hollywood, the media, and the politicians. Anybody know what an unsuppressed .223 or the 16-inch barrel sound, dB level, what the dB is? Chris?
It's got to be over 100.
165. Wow. OSHA has determined 140 is the level where you begin to suffer hearing loss. Anything above 140, you begin to lose it. So, at 140 dB, that's pretty freaking loud. Now, if you're going to fire an AR-15, 16-inch barrel, you're looking at 165. That's sharp, and that's why you wear hearing protection. Anybody got to guess what that same gun with a suppressor on it will shoot at for dB level? 134. Maybe 136, depending on the manufacturer. Now, if 140 begins hearing damage, 134, 136 ain't that far away. As a matter of fact, I printed out something on here just to run by you. Okay, a jackhammer. Those guys, the jackhammers, beating up on the concrete and pavement to break it up. 120 dB. 120. A suppressed AR is 134 to 136. Chainsaw. We've all operated chainsaws. 110 dB. That sounds silent to you? Jackhammer sounds silent to you? Absolutely not. Nail gun comes in at 100 dB. And just for conversation's sake, without the aid of microphones and stuff, normal speech is 60 dB. So the idea, the very concept that a suppressor makes a gun silent is just a bunch of hooey. But that's what we're being told because that's what we see in the movies. That's what our politicians are telling us. And it's a big, fat lie. Now, a lot of speakers have taken beating up on Trump, and I like the guy. He's done amazing things. I did vote for him. Ted Cruz was my guy, but when Trump came to it, he got my vote. So I still support him. But After the shooting in Virginia, he's talking about a national ban on suppressors, which is absolutely ludicrous. As Alan from the Gun Owners of America has talked about, in Europe they're required so that you can be nice to your neighbors. But here, for some reason, going back to the National Firearms Act of 1934, they are banned. As a matter of fact, having worked for a suppressor manufacturer, I learned something that I didn't even know. While a suppressor is made up basically of stacked baffles that trap the gas and push it back, you get a lot of blowback when you shoot a suppressed rifle or a handgun. Each component of the suppressor is considered a suppressor. If I had taken a component of one of those suppressors, whose only purpose was to be in a suppressor, put it in my pocket, walked out the door, and the feds caught me, I'd be in jail right now for having an unlicensed suppressor on me. You want to talk about regulated? Holy crap! Suppressors are one of the most regulated items out there. So the bad guys don't get them. They're very unlikely, they're very difficult to conceal on you. You don't hear about gangbangers using suppressors, also known as cans, out there when they're shooting people up. So what we need to do as a group, we talked about getting active and doing things, is reach out to President Trump, reach out to our elected officials, do some education talking about how Hollywood lies and suppressors are not silencers. They simply suppress sound, and let them know. There was a shoot that a company I was involved with did in Rhode Island. This is very typical. They did a legislator shoot in Rhode Island, and they brought suppressors because they wanted the Rhode Island State Legislature to experience what a suppressor actually does. They had 3 suppressor manufacturers there, and 2 gun clubs went there. And guess how many Rhode Island legislators showed up to experience it?
0.
Bingo. Not a single one. They hold them in Massachusetts. Guess how many legislators show up to experience what a suppressor really sounds like?
-200.
Negative 200. It's 0. These people simply don't show up. As we all know, the problem we have with firearms, we have people that know nothing about them writing laws about them. Now, getting out there and communicating with our elected officials, communicating with our friends, is vital to us keeping our rights. Something I talk about at every get-together was mentioned before, bring one friend. I get a different idea. Yeah, you can bring one friend, but take someone who is not that familiar with guns and bring them to the range. Give them eye protection, give them hearing protection, give them a 22 to start off with, all right? Don't give them a 12 gauge with a turkey load in it. Give them a 22 and let them experience it. I'm fortunate enough to be an NRA instructor, and I've had a lot of people come through the class, typically women, and I'll start out the class. What brings you here? What brought you out today? And I get a lot of responses from women saying, oh, my boyfriend or my husband has guns. I don't like them. I just want to be safer on them. I want to know, to be safe. I don't want to shoot it. I just want to know how to handle it and be safe should anything ever happen. And it's like, perfectly fine. We do the classroom part. We go down to the range, start them off with a 22. And next thing I know, they're saying, that's the gun I'm going to go buy. I like this. This is fun. This is a real hoot. And I don't know how many people I've converted from being, it doesn't really impact me, I'm not going to care, to, holy crap, this is fun. I'm going to go get something. I think Ruger owes me a check for the SR-22. I probably sold a couple of dozen of those right now just by having it in my class, and people go out and buy them afterwards. Bring a friend to the range. Make him feel comfortable. Give them something small they can shoot. When I have my targets are literally about from here to that microphone stand away from my students. I use shoot and see targets. They can see immediately where they hit. It's close so that they get good scores and so that they can see that they're actually hitting near the bullseye to get confidence and they enjoy themselves. Do that with friends of yours. If you're going to go out shooting with your buddy, and invite your wife, your girlfriend, not both. Invite their wife or girlfriend, again, not both. But invite them to come with you and give them some good muffs for hearing protection. Not everybody can figure out the squishies. But take them out there. This is going to come down to, we can sit there and we can rub write our fingers to the bone and do all kinds of stuff. But the facts right now, especially in this state, is that the antis outnumber the pros. So we need to increase our numbers. And we do that by having people experience what it's like to shoot. Shooting a 22. Oh my God, I hit the target. Yeah, you hit the bullseye a couple of times too. Wow, this is fun. I think I could enjoy this. That's how we increase our numbers, by sharing it in a safe, friendly environment. And that's what we need to do, get our numbers out there. Also, for those, who's seen any of the John Wick movies? You guys seen John Wick? If you guys have not seen the John Wick movies, except for the second one, the first one especially was phenomenal. It is the most accurate portrayal of shooting that I've seen anywhere. In the training, I have to give Keanu Reeves kudos for the training he went through. He did extensive 3-gun training to be able to do that movie, and it shows. He actually reloads his gun during gunfights. How many times we see somebody with a semi-automatic out there and they're 30 shots into it and they still haven't reloaded, right? So John Wick is a good movie. I don't know why I went down that tangent. But the sound suppressors, talk to your friends, educate them. They're not silencers. They simply deafen the sound. If they don't understand, ask them, is a jackhammer quiet? Is a chainsaw quiet? Because a suppressed shot is louder than that. Some of the suppressors out there are so crappy they won't even lower the shot below 140 dB, which is amazing. So talk to your friends, educate them, get out there, take a friend to the range, take somebody who's not certain to the range, get them involved, and that is how we grow our numbers. I'm not taking a lot of time. I know we all want to get out of here. David, where'd you go? I don't know where he went. He's up on the hill? Yeah, Joe, can you yell at him? Oh, there he is. Hey, David! Dave!
Talk for your microphone, he'll hear you.
I tried, he wasn't listening. Anyway, I want to thank you all for still being here this late in the day. It's appreciated. Good to see some friends out there, some familiar faces. Thank you, and hope you have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Nice and short.
All right. Thank you, Kirk. Again, Kirk's donated a couple of courses. So if you're looking for NRA certified instructor, check out the raffle table right up here. 50-50 raffle going to be drawn soon. Another one inside the building, a high performance pellet gun they got on the inside for raffle. And of course the black powder. When I get off stage here, if you need a ticket, let me know. Our next speaker, last year, it was getting to the end of the afternoon, kind of like it is now. It's a long day. We're used to going out for hour, 2-hour events. These events that are 6-8 hours long, it's a little tough to stay in your seat, but we got to the end of the afternoon. Barbara from Harlem came out. I was told she was on her way, and she got out there. It was towards the end of the afternoon, and boy, she no more than landed, and we got her up here. I introduced her and got her on the mic. She just wrote a book, Escaping the Racism of Low Expectations, you see. We got a patriot here that is not afraid to go into those inner cities and in the urban areas. Start teaching these kids that, the progressive message may not be the right one. The Democrats may not actually be advocating for their best interests. And you know what? She's making progress. These young minds are starting to open a little bit. And only because this woman was brave enough to go into the belly of the beast and tell it like it is. So I described her last year. I wasn't sure what to expect. Some very good friends of mine who I trust told me about her, said she was on her way. But, I had to plead ignorance. I didn't know much about the woman. But I got great friends, you see, and I trusted their integrity and their estimation here, and I invited her up to the microphone. And by the time she was about 30 seconds into her speech, everyone was awake up in their seat, and I said, holy mackerel. And I pretty consistently described her as lightning in a bottle. And I'm telling you, you folks got it again this year. A full dose, though. She's not just getting a few minutes. She's going to get a full slot here, and I want her to explain what she's been doing, the impetus for the book that she's already written, maybe a few highlights of the one that's on the way. Please give it up for Barbara from Harlem.
There what? Come on down. Come on down. We're getting ready to fly.
Yeah!
All right, good afternoon, patriots. Good afternoon, all of you that love this country. And I want to thank my friends Dennis, Patrick, Dave, Cynthia, for having me back, and the others that I may not name, but you're still in my heart. God bless every one of you for being here. Took us a little while to get here. We were coming from Rome, New York, and I do apologize for this late date, the time that we have arrived. But I do thank God that we are here and we got here safely. And you can't ask for more than that. Up there in Rome, New York, where we just came from, we were celebrating the birthday of our president as well as Flag Day. And we had some wonderful speakers up there at Fort Stanwyck. And they talked about the flag, the 13 stripes, the 7 red and the 6 white, representing the 13 colonies when this country was founded. And we all know that these 5 stars, 5 pointed stars, represent the 50 states of this great union. And they're on that blue background. I'm sorry that I didn't have time to change, because for this event and the one previously, I ordered a shirt, blouse, a United States flag blouse. But since I don't have time to change, you'll have to invite me back next time and I'll wear it. At any rate, when I look at this flag, I look at God. I think about God, how he blessed this nation above all nations. You know, when we look in that little book that, it has the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, it says that the Constitution is for virtuous people. Are we virtuous? Do we believe in right and wrong? And if we do, we have no doubt who we're going to vote for the next election. And that person we're going to vote for is pro-God, pro-America, pro-American, pro-gun, pro-Israel, pro-being self-sufficient. And that person is Donald J. Trump. He celebrates this country, and we need to celebrate the goodness of God for planting us here in a place like no other on the face of the earth. I don't know if you can ever find a place, any other country, that you have such a diversity of people from so many backgrounds, so many countries, so many cultures coming together as one. And I'm here to really just help us celebrate Flag Day and the fact that our forefathers gave us the Second Amendment right to bear arms. It just dawned on me as my daughter and I were coming here, and we were doing our program that we do every Saturday on ddvradio.com called Our Urban Story, that when these, I don't like to call them liberals, these secular humanists, who to me are godless heathens, I just call it like it is, I'm not politically correct, when they develop these gun-free zones like you have in schools and other places, they set up targets for the crazies. They never tell us how many law-abiding, gun-bearing citizens happen to be in a store, happen to be at a workplace, and stop the crazy from creating more harm and killing more people. Law-abiding citizens have a right to bear arms. And we, as the new generation of we the people of the United States, need to make sure that we do everything in our power to make sure that those demon rats who want to disarm us are never elected again to not even the dog watcher position. They don't deserve to be representatives of we the people when they ignore the voice of the governed. We are the governed. Governments are instituted so that we can have our will, power, and common defense looked after. They're ignoring that. They should give us a refund. Since Donald J. Trump has been elected, they have not concentrated on protecting our children who may be exposed to disease because of illegal immigration. They have not helped those little girls who are being raped. They have not tried to stop the drugs that are pouring over our borders. They have focused on getting themselves paid for not doing their job, forgetting about their constitutional responsibilities, and trying to impeach 63 million people who went to the polls and said, we're not going to vote for a congenital liar. We're not going to vote for someone who let our ambassador and 3 other heroes get killed. We're not going to vote for someone who destroyed evidence that if you and I did that, we would go to jail for. We refuse to vote for someone with those low character traits. And we voted for someone who was already a billionaire, didn't need to make money by his political contacts. Look at what they've done to us. Look at Maxine Waters. Where would she be without being in office? She'd be a poor woman probably, waiting for her next Social Security check. What else would Nancy Pelosi have done if she didn't go into politics? She got rich. What about Elizabeth Warren? That crook. And got nerve enough to be talking about reparations for black people. You're not black. I am, and you don't owe me anything. Period. I didn't pick any cotton. I don't even know what it looks like. I've seen it once in my lifetime. Forget about that. Close our borders. Protect our cities. Protect our children. They owe us a refund. And we should demand it. Because they're not doing their jobs. And of course, nervous, nasty Pelosi is talking about someone being in prison. Well, was she talking about Hillary? Did she forget about her? I mean, our president hasn't done anything but tell the Mexicans, I'm going to charge you tariffs if you don't do something about these caravans. He didn't draw any line in the grass, in the sand, or in his mind. He's a businessman. America has been blessed with the master of the art of the deal. He knows how to wheel. He knows how to deal. And he knows how to make America great again. That's who we have. That's who we need to keep. That's who we need to get out and tell those who are too lazy to exercise the privilege of being an American and participating in voting. To get up off that couch. Stop watching that program. As the world turns, it's not going to feed you. It's not going to help you get a job. Get out there and vote for someone who's out there in Iowa talking to the farmers about the renewable energy that we now have. You know, and he said something that we haven't heard in a long time. Farm country is God's country. We have God back in the White House. We had an administration that said down, down, down. So far down with God that he made up things about Muslim contributions to the founding of America. Total lies and just an illusion of the dark-hearted. You know, I did a flyer when I thought he was going to run for president. After looking up his 2007 senatorial record, and I'm talking about vomit. And when I looked up his record, I said, and I told my daughter, this man hates America. I did a flyer that I mailed across the country anonymously because I know how dangerous those crazies are. And I deemed him the poster boy of the godless. I don't think anyone in here can dispute that I was right on target. He was very godless, but we survived here by the grace of God. And we got someone who says, up with God. We have someone who says, God bless America. Whether you're religious or not, you have to recognize this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. I always wear a cross as well as the Star of David because Judaism is the root of Christianity. And that's the truth of the matter. That's why slavery was ended. Because God touched the hearts of our forefathers and said, we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So what came from that? Not with the help of the demon rats, but what came from that? 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. And quite frankly, in my book I have a chapter, Thank God for Slavery. Because God was gracious to me. He was gracious to my forefathers and foremothers by planting them in the United States. They could have been planted in Haiti. They could have remained in Africa. They could have been planted in Venezuela. True. But they landed here. Amen. In America. Yes, they suffered. Yes, it was cruel and it was vile. But nothing happens that God doesn't see. I think I mentioned it before, but I always refer to Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers to the Egyptians. And when they had to come because they were low on food and finally realized that Joseph, who was second in command, I believe, was their brother that they had sold, he said, you don't have to worry about me exacting any revenge, because what you meant for evil, my own brothers, God, Almighty God, meant for good. Amen. So I can say my forefathers and foremothers who landed here and were planted here for good, and they were blessed. And I am blessed to be born in America. I don't need a green card. I didn't have to take a boat, leave my mother, leave my land. I was born here. And for that, I'm blessed. Amen. Don't let anyone beat you over the head about what the white man used to do. Tell them, well, what are you going to do? Tell God to pay reparations? Because he allowed it. He sees everything, he knows everything, and he allowed it. But what man meant for evil, God meant for good. I just love being around patriotic people. They're people who keep their words and they know who they are because they don't get their identity from the news media or from CNN. When I talk to people who are wacky, and you see, when you're dark-hearted, you're wacky because you don't make sense. I say, oh my goodness, you watch CNN. They say, well, how do you know? I said, because all of you sound so alike. And that's the truth. Thank God we still have Americans in America who are thinkers. And you're thinkers because you're gathered here to celebrate Flag Day, celebrate your right to bear arms. And you know how crucial that is in America. We can't give up. We can't give in. Because their agenda is to disarm us and create another Venezuela. Nothing that I know of that man created, no system, no communism, no socialism has survived, has helped to have the people have the safety nets. What we have is something that God gave it to us. And God will give us the strength to fight our way to the end, to keep it away and out of the hands of those godless heathens. And they are godless heathens. Look what they've done to the black families. With a few words, you know, they have gilded tongues. And they can twist those tongues and they sound like that serpent that talked to Eve. They fooled a lot of black people. And they still fool a lot of black and some whites. Because they promise this, promise that. And then when they get ready, they take it from you. I was talking on the radio with, you know, for our program. I met a man at a fish market in Harlem recently. And he told me he grew up in Harlem and we shared some common things. And he told me, he said, well, I'm in Brooklyn now. And see, come to find out, when he was in Harlem, he was growing up in what the Democrats promised, fair housing or low housing, whatever they call it. When they got ready to build something, they told him and the others who lived in that building, get out. You go to Brooklyn and live or live on the street. This is what he told me they told him. He didn't want to leave Harlem. But when they give you something, hold your breath when they're ready to take it away. See, we are endowed by our Creator. What God gives us, no man can take. What God gives us, no man can touch. What God gives us, we really need to celebrate. I'm so proud to be here. I'm always proud to be around people who love God, love their country, love their flag, honor it. I get so disturbed when I hear people like Kaepernick. They don't want to respect the anthem or the flag. Well, no one should respect any game that they play in.
Exactly.
We need to learn how to boycott.
Absolutely.
Because those people who pay them the millions of dollars, those dollars come from your pockets. And the only way godless people respond to anything is through their pockets. So we need to be more careful of where we spend our dollars.
Amen.
You know, it's been a long time since, it's been years since I even went to see Patti LaBelle. She may not miss my dollar, but I refuse to go to any of her concerts because the last one I went to, I realized she was a liberal. And I'm not going to support anything that I know is a liberal. I have to find another jeweler, you know, to fix my jewelry because I went to the mall and the jeweler I've been going to for years, he had his prayer cloth down and didn't want to be disturbed. Well, I don't try to support people who have another faith and send money to terrorists. And they're obligated to do that. So we have to draw that line in the sand for conscience sake and for America's sake.
Amen.
We need to be more conscious, more in tune to people who hate, number one, our God,
Yeah.
are jealous of us.
Yeah. That's true.
Because if they had in their countries what we have here, they wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
We don't go invading them. They don't have immigration problems with us.
Right.
And then for people who keep talking about how racist America is, well, tell the Africans.
Right.
You know, on 116th Street, we have a lot of Africans.
Absolutely.
We were just in a store in with Denny's up in Rome, New York. There was an African family. If America is so racist, then why do the Africans come? Like I told my black professor, you're blacker than I am. You came here voluntarily, so don't talk bad about America. And if you don't like it, pack up and get out. I'll help you. Absolutely. And this professor, I guess I got him so nervous, he started calling on Allah. And I said, that's part of our problem too. This country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. But as long as I'm in this class and I wear my scarf that says, God bless America, I wear my pin that's a United States flag, don't you dare tell minority students they can't make it here. Because you're here. And you were not born here. I was. And I got him straightened out and I got an A+. And this was back in 2006 when my daughter encouraged me to go to college and get a college degree. See, during my day, when we graduated high school, we could go any place and work. Because we could read, we could write, we could count. I run organizations and started an organization without a college degree. But my daughter wouldn't let me rest until I was a college graduate. But it was a good experience. And I've written about it in my book, Escaping the Racism of Low Expectations. And it's true. I didn't write something where I had to interview a college student. We're in trouble, my friends, and we need to keep fighting. We're in trouble, my friends, because they're poisoning the mind of our young people. We're in trouble because we have too many liberals in positions of authority, not only in the government, in our church houses. I've written about them. In our church house. I am an ordained minister. And my daughters, they would tell me, Mama, don't go and sit in anyone's pulpit. And you know why? Because when they start saying crazy things or ungodly things, I make faces. My face is very expressive. So my daughters told me, don't sit in the pulpit, Mama, because they can see you too clearly. So I don't sit in pulpits. But I am an ordained minister for many, 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 many years. And I wrote about the church. It's a sad state of affairs, but as recent as 3 years ago, I heard a pastor in Paterson, New Jersey, tell black people that white people are trying to take your vote, trying to stop black people from voting. This was not too long ago. This is the insanity that you hear from the pulpits. So I've written about that, and I wrote about my experience in the institution of higher propaganda. How they brainwash those who are returning to school, and most of them aren't returning to school to get a job. They're not training them to get jobs. They're training them to hate America. They're training them to write papers about how America has oppressed you. Well, I wrote a paper how I was oppressed in America, but it was her father oppressed me. That's who oppressed me. And that's what I wrote my paper about. I foxed their box. But the key to all of that was every time I had to go to class, I put my hand on the door and I say, dear Lord, as I go into this den of iniquity, please keep me from going off on one of these crazy people. But I can go off now. I can go into my own world. But it's always a pleasure, my friends. I just want you to stay strong. Stay focused. Know that you're doing the right thing. Not only for yourself, but for those coming behind you. Make it work. Talk to those people you haven't talked to for years. Talk to those liberals. Gentleman was over there and he just purchased a book. He said his sister lives in Manhattan and his brother, and he's going to give them a copy of a book. I want you all to pray that that book will help change those liberal-minded people. Some of them aren't bad. I didn't meet one good liberal in college. You know, Dr. LaSalle, and he would turn purple when I said, well, by the way, did Karl Marx hate God and try to dethrone God? See, they don't want you to know those things. But I would dig deep. And I happened to find out that Karl Marx wanted to dethrone God. That's why these demon rats are so godless.
Yeah, that's true.
They want to be, man is the measure of all things. Please read the book.
Yes.
You'll read about secular humanism
Yes.
and how Dr. D. James Kennedy and Dr. Sproul,
Yeah.
men who are theologians,
Yeah.
helped me go to another level in my relationship with God. Because unfortunately, after I was a girl at Bethel AME Church, where they said, love thy neighbor, other than that, in the churches I went to, it was always the white man's going to hold you back while you're saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Right.
Contradictory.
Yeah, that's true.
Love thy neighbor. I love each and every one of you, as long as you don't cross me. No, I'm good. I'm good. But I mean, please fight on. Stand up. Don't be afraid that you're supporting Donald John Trump, and his birthday was yesterday, 73 years old. God bless him. He has the energy of a 55-year-old. But that's what we need. And we need someone who's wheeling and dealing and knows what he's doing, and he's charismatic. And if Joe Biden is going to run against him, who cares? Who cares if Berserk O'Rourke runs against him? All of these people are crazy. A.O. crazy is crazy. Omar is ill and evil. And the other one, I call her Rash. And Mad Maxie, I have all kinds of names. I'm from New York too, and we'll name you in a minute. Period. You know, I don't use those other words, but I can get under your skin if I want to. But I'm just happy to be here. And I'm so thankful that we have Americans who honor this flag.
Amen.
Who honor your citizenship in the greatest country that God ever shaped in the palm of his hands. Stay strong. Stay vigilant. Stay on the job. And support our president 1,000% because he's the best thing that's happened to America in a long time. Support him and he'll keep working for all of us. God bless you, and may God Almighty continue to bless this wonderful United States of America.
Yes! Thank you!
There, how about that, huh? Boy, now you see why I mixed the agenda up. I don't think you could have taken more. Lynn Roberts, Chris Ann Hall, and Barbara from Harlem. I think that's all the mama bear you guys can take. Oh, man, great speech. Thank you very much, Barbara. A real patriot right there. Oh, man. Hey, we're getting down to the end here. We got one more speaker left, and then we're going to dig into these raffles. I want to thank everyone who's come out here today. The vendors, the people who just came out to listen, the folks at the club. Just been an outstanding afternoon, and I'm real blessed to have worked with so many great people. Last but not least, as you know, I had announced a few weeks ago, Stuart Rhodes of Oathkeepers was going to be in attendance. It was kind of a last-minute addition. We didn't know that he was going to be available. He was supposed to be, I think, in D.C. doing some lobbying and some work there. And he was going to divert up here, and we got him on the agenda, and turns out there's things going on down the border, so Stuart couldn't make it. He sent word, just shortly before the event here that he wasn't going to be here, but he pulled me in on a conference call with some of his other national board members, and we got one of them here from New York. His name is Paul Murray. He's from Orange County Oathkeepers. Very talented guy, real activist, and we're going to have him come up in Stuart's stead, say a few words about the organization, hopefully a few words about our Constitution and the Second Amendment, and maybe give us an update on what Stuart's been up to. So please, big round of applause, Mr. Paul Murray.
Wow, I got to follow Barbara from Harlem, man. That's, geez. And how do you fill Stuart Rhodes' shoes? It's, but I got to tell you, what an amazing day. Massey, if you're out there, oh my God, dude, you inspired the heck out of me. I've been to a lot of these events since I started to get active in 2009, the first Tea Party in Washington. I have never, ever seen an opening as inspirational as we had here today. Unbelievable. But I wanted to, I know I've had the opportunity to meet a bunch of Oathkeepers since I got here from Massachusetts. There's Oathkeepers from Connecticut here today. We came up from New York. Please, I encourage you before I leave. We've got another one back there. Connect with me before we leave. There's so much going on with the organization. But I got involved with Oathkeepers back in 2012. My first, I was talking to Steve over here, who shared with me that his activism began with 9/11 when the towers fell. And for me, it was took me a little longer to come around. It was the beginning of the Obama administration was really was my moment where I said, something's not right here. We are off the reservation. And I was active with Oathkeepers from being down in Washington for the first Tea Party event. But after a while, I found in my area of Orange County, New York, that they were marginalizing the Tea Party. The Tea Party was kind of becoming more and more ineffective, and this was around the time I was becoming aware of Oathkeepers. And I thought to myself, how do you marginalize people who have put on the uniform and put themselves in the line of fire, risk their lives for their country? How do you do that? That's going to be a much tougher, thing to do. So I joined our Oathkeepers, and then because of the twist of fate, in 2015, we had the people that were running our chapter in Orange County basically quit. And I went to the president, rest in peace, John Wallace, who was alive at the time, was our state president, and I asked him, I said, I want to keep the chapter going. Can I run it? And he says, yeah, you can if you can find somebody who's either served in the military or an LEO. I'm an associate member. I never served. So I was able to get a police sergeant from Crawford, New York, Eric Meyer, to be my co-leader. And we turned the chapter around. And one of the ways we were able to do that is Oathkeepers, if you don't know, first of all, for those of you who aren't familiar, Oathkeepers is a national organization of active and retired military, law enforcement, and first responders, totally about fidelity to the Constitution. That's it. We're constitutionalists. And we reach, teach, and inspire. And some of you may be familiar with the CPT, Community Preparedness Team concept that we put out there. And we glommed onto it. We said, yeah, this makes sense. Community Preparedness Team is emergency medical, communications, engineering, preparedness, and security. And we put together people that have backgrounds and talents in those 5 areas, and we went out and we sold it to the community. So I was fortunate. First of all, we're fortunate in Orange County. We've got a Patriot county executive who's actually serving over in Afghanistan as we speak. We have a constitutional sheriff, Carl Du Bois, and we've got basically a very conservative government. So we were able to actually go to the Mayors and Supervisors Association and hit every county in one meeting, sell them on who we were and our CPT concept. And then also we were able to get to the police chiefs, the Municipal Police Chiefs Association, do the same thing. So slowly but surely we started to build relationships. They knew who we were. They knew that what we were trying to do was worthwhile, wasn't threatening. We were level-headed guys. We were in many cases veterans and LEOs. And we had a couple of events that really even enhanced that. There was in the town of Warwick, which I lived in before a life-altering event, and I still am very involved in the community of Warwick in Orange County. What had happened was there is a group that came into the town, kind of like a Trojan horse. They call themselves Community 2000, but they're really Marxists. And they come in and they start engaging in all of these feel-good things, community service projects, where they look like they're, the answer to a prayer. They're coming in and they're helping with kids, and they're doing all these counseling programs on the opioid crisis and everything else. Well, as we started to, try to communicate with them, we realized that what they're really doing is indoctrinating. A couple of examples. They, on the anniversary of the Columbine shooting, where most kids around the country walked out of the classroom for 5 minutes, had their moment of silence, whatever, walked back in. In Warwick, the Community 2000 group organized a walkout for 4 hours out of the school on a Friday during school hours across town to a teach-in on gun control. And I had it took one of the mayors of the village actually reached out to me in tipped me off to that. And he said, what the heck? And that was a major moment for us, that a politician would reach out before he called the town supervisor or the chief of police. He called me, an oath keeper, because we were starting to, build trust and relationship. And the very first thing I did was I reached out to the chief of police, and I reached out to the town supervisor, and we stopped them in their tracks. And for the longest time, the same group, they had an LGBT parade last year, where the grand marshal of the parade was a 10-year-old transgender. They had a protest, and all of this is happening in the public square, completely no conservative response to it. So it's like they're taking over. They did a session at the library where they had a program on Thomas Paine, and it was called Thomas Paine Remaking the World. And they had a guy dressed up like Thomas Paine, basically bad-mouthing all of his fellow founders. And why was he bad-mouthing them? Because they were racist slave owners. So essentially what these people did was they turned Thomas Paine into a social justice warrior. If it wasn't for a few of us, Oath Keepers, that were at that particular event, these people in their bubble would have bought into it, and it would have been a totally different experience. The mayor had a liberal mayor put a blue line down the center of Main Street. A liberal, progressive liberal, thinking that was going to be a slap in the face to the Black Lives Matter movement, got a petition, got 300 signatures, and so the mayor called, invited the opposing sides, because a New York firefighter also got a petition and got over 1,000 signatures in favor of the blue line. And so the mayor says, well, we have these two opposing, viewpoints on the blue line, so we'll invite both sides to come to the next village meeting and talk about it, and then we'll decide what we're going to do about the blue line. So we show up that night at the village board meeting to talk about the blue line. The mayor had arbitrarily gone out that day and painted a white line down one side of the blue line and a red line down the other, thinking in his mind, he's compromised, he's solved the problem. We had 6 Oath Keepers there with the families of the local police, and we reamed him a new one, if you catch my drift. I mean, literally gave him holy hell. And the left had gotten there early, and they occupied the center of the village hall. The families and all of us Oath Keepers, we were out in the outer perimeter. And when things got heated, this big dyke of a woman gets up and she yells, "This is a safe space." And I had just come from seeing Mel Gibson's movie Hacksaw Ridge, where, young boys, young teenagers in many cases, went into 50 caliber machine gun fire for this country, for the right for people to assemble and speak their minds. And then here's this woman, as we're there assembling, speaking our minds, telling us it's a safe space. I went nuts. I went ballistic. I yelled, well, safe space? What the hell is a safe space? But long story short, we put so much pressure on them. The mayor heard us so, passionately. The blue line stayed. And just recently, in the last couple of weeks, I approached the deacons of our church, and I said, listen, they're doing LGBT parades, they're doing anti-Kavanaugh parades, they're doing, all of these crazy un-American things. Why don't we have a Choose Life parade? Because Andrew Cuomo, as many of you know, had just signed this crazy bill where, legalizing infanticide. And I was able to get our deacons to support doing a Choose Life parade. We got Dr. Elizabeth Rex from the Children First Foundation to be our key speaker. We had hundreds of people show up. And, you know, the bottom line is this is what we need to do. You know, as Chris Ann was saying, the importance of a president that we in our minds have way up here, it's below the sheriff, it's local. Where we're going to make an impact, where we're going to change things and win hearts and minds is local, because we can do that. We can do that. I can walk into the supermarket, I can bump into my town supervisor or my county executive. We know each other on a first name basis. The last thing we had was right before the Choose Life parade, they had a couple of mothers of transgender kids come and give a presentation in the local library about the struggles that their kids are going through because of their sexual identity. By the way, how many people know what the acronym SOGI, S-O-G-I? Show of hands. How many people know what SOGI is? SOGI is sexual orientation, gender identity. How many people have heard of the Equality Act? Okay? The Equality Act, which passed the House of Representatives, is probably more Orwellian than anything that they're trying to throw at us. It's right up there with Agenda 21 in terms of controlling us. It's total Orwell nonsense. Which ties into our Second Amendment, because what the Equality Act will do is force us to violate our conscience as Christians. How do you force an armed citizen to violate their conscience? You can't. So the SAFE Act in New York, the equality, it all ties in together. But we got to get out. We got to go to these things. When they have a drag queen story hour like they did in Yonkers Riverfront Library this week, I'm looking at you guys. I'm with my brothers and sisters here, and I know damn well I would bet anything that any of you fathers would call it a drag queen hour, because you go in there and you drag that person out by their head. They're there grooming our kids. They're sexualizing our kids. That's what's happening. And so, but we show up. We go to these things. They're in their bubble. If there's nobody there to ask honest questions, so we went to the transgender thing. There were 4 of us, Oathkeepers. We listened. It was a 2-hour thing. They allowed 15 minutes for questions and answers. And very respectfully, I began my remarks by saying, first of all, I salute you for your passion and your willingness to engage and come out and speak your mind and your heart. More people ought to do that. But as soon as I started to ask questions about, you know, I had research. I was aware of the Sweden research that the suicide rate in post-assignment surgeries, people who've had the reassignment, sexual reassignment, is 20 times greater than the normal populace. So why? Because these people think that completely butchering their bodies is going to make them happy, and then when it doesn't, obviously, you know, they get even more depressed. But what was interesting was when the moderator of this transgender hour and the speaker realized that I wasn't part of the fantasy, that I wasn't part of the narrative, that I was going off what, you know, they have to control everything, right? When they realized I wasn't part of their group, they came in like, you know, a vice grip to shut me down. And I didn't, you know, get crazy or anything like that. But at the very end, I simply looked at her and I said, you know, you got very defensive with me. And she did. She got defensive and aggressive. And what that created was a moment for people to see truth. And on some level, it got to even the ones that were, you know, more involved in the whole cause. And it never would have happened if we weren't there. So I guess my main message is, all of these things. You got to get out. We come here, we're like preaching to the choir. We're all singing from the same hymnal. But the real test is to get into the public square, whether it's letters to the editor, going to these events, and just being, you don't have to get crazy. Just ask questions, because they cannot, as Rush Limbaugh has said many times, they cannot compete in the arena of ideas, which is why they have to censor and ban us. It's that simple. But we gotta be willing to stick our necks out a little bit and go and do that and get involved. Last thing I want to say is we are very, very, very blessed in Orange County. We got some great members in our chapter. One is a gentleman by the name of Brett Hamilton, who is running with a program called Oathkeeper TV. And what we're envisioning is, this is amazing, and it's the way God works. And by the way, I just want to say real quickly, we are dealing, as we've heard from pastors here today, and so many people, including Barbara, have referenced who we take our orders from, where our rights come from, right? We know this is a battle space of powers and principalities, and we got to do things. We got to put on and gird ourselves for that space. And it's different. Yeah, we arm ourselves physically for that battle space, but in the war and powers and principalities, it's prayer, it's fasting. It's James 4:8. When I draw closer to God, God draws closer to me. So, here's an example of how that's happening in our life. So I work out at Gold's Gym in Harlem, New York. One day I'm in the locker room after working out, and there's a young guy, I'm guessing 33, 34 years old. We're getting changed. They got a TV up. Something comes on the TV. I forget what it was at this point. But we both respond in a way that it told me that he and I are kindred spirits. And we opened up when we started talking. And it turned out that he's a producer, film producer. And he produced the first Wounded Warriors commercial that starred Matthew Modine, if you remember that. The guy's 33 years old and he's been doing this 20 years. He has, you meet this guy and you're blown away by what he can do it all. He brings it all to the table. So when I tell him I'm Oathkeepers, he gets pumped. He says, man, I want to work with you guys because I believe in what you're doing. So Brett has this thing he wants to do, Oathkeeper TV, right around this time. Anybody been down to Orange County, New York, know Sugarloaf? No? Sugarloaf is an arts and crafts hamlet, it's like a mini Woodstock in Orange County. And they have a performing arts center. The guy who built it made all his money off of stage lighting, Lyceum lighting. There isn't an act in the world, Broadway, the Rolling Stones, any act in the world that doesn't use this guy's lights. So the theater is state of the arts. We're going in, we met Friday to finalize the proposal. We're going in probably sometime next week to make our presentation to the town. A win-win-win. The time is right, the economy is right, the town supervisor is a Trump supporter. We're bringing in Steven Spielberg. I'm not kidding you. We're going to put $150,000 worth of equipment on that site. We're going to bring in acts like car shows, in addition to live shows, the Sheepdog Hour, Constitution Corner. We're on 5 channels right now. Roku, I'm a little over my head here. Brett has all this stuff. But what we're going to do is create a media outlet. We're going to draw people into the area. We're going to be able to do prep shows, survival shows. I talked to Chris Ann Hall after she did her thing, and I told her about what we're doing. She says, I'm in. I'll come, I'll do a live show, I'll sit with you guys, I'll get you material and content. This is what we need to win hearts and minds. And all of us in the Northeast, whether you're a 3%er or an Oathkeeper, we are going to create something that is going to win the hearts and minds and bring people back to who we are, our founding, the essence of this country. And it's just the time is right. The planets are in the right alignment. Let's see, what else do I have to say here? But anybody has any interest in that wants to get connected, I've been networking since I got here with Oathkeepers and everything else. Please see me before we leave. I want to thank David and Cindy. What a job these guys do. This is my first year here, but wow, what a day. What a fabulous day. And now I'm the only thing keeping you from getting out of here. So I'm gonna step off the stage, but God bless you all. Love you, and God bless America. Thanks again, Dave.
All right, good stuff. I was on the battle green the day this organization was founded, and I'm glad I was. You know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with an organization whose main goal is to reach, teach, and inspire, and to hold anyone who holds their hand up and swears an oath to the Constitution. Oaths aren't something to be taken lightly. So thank you guys. You've done an outstanding job and a great service, and I'm looking forward to a much more productive activity and awareness, teaching these people at all levels, whether it's military, police, fire, EMT, anyone that takes that oath, and myself included. I work in local government. I had to take an oath, and I did not take it to any one person, not to any one party. It was to the Constitution and the people that are being served. We're public servants. So great message, great group. I don't know how anyone could be opposed to following through with your oath. So we burned through our agenda. We've got, it's dessert time.
That's right.
Oh, the cake maker to the rally, Jolene Hackett Guzzo. She got herself, just a couple of years ago, decided to take the big leap, started her own business. She's made a birthday cake for Sheriff Joe Arpaio. She's made a rally cake every year for us. And the latest one is here, so please, it is dessert time. Feel free to dig in and take some pictures and share that around. Jolene, it's the first time she hasn't been able to make it out here. But she sends her love, and we send our love right back. It's time to do the raffles. What I like is for the folks that are up in the parking lot near the vendors, if we can get everyone down here fairly close, I'd like to get moving on that in just a moment. But as we're getting our rally or raffle stuff together, I thought it was kind of a nice segue is when Paul was wrapping up. You know, he was talking about a little independent media effort and how important that was for us to not just watch the news, but create it and share it. And that being said, someone who's supported my work and supports activism in general, turning everyone into a citizen reporter. I'd like to give her a few minutes up on the mic here to share a little bit about what she's doing and why it is important for each of us. In the age of cell phones, we are all now reporters, or can and should be. So I'm going to call up to the mic, if I could, Janet Aldrich, to say a little bit about her organization and the importance of the independent media. Janet?
Thank you, Dave and Cindy. So it's COMFLM Media Productions, CR News, which is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Freelance Media Registry, which I started in 2004. So I've got 15 years on the beat on Beacon Hill. So I've covered 500 public hearings all by myself with a trusty little camera that John Abramson's holding. You can hold it up, John. And so what I have the answer for all of the talks that have gone on today. So I've been singing this same song for 15 years. First it was a vision. Now it really is a thing. So I'm really asking you to really pay attention to what I'm trying to explain. So press, okay, actually the public hearings on Beacon Hill, anyone can tape a public hearing, no matter where it is, as long as it's public. If it's advertised as a public event, any citizen can tape a public hearing. So I took that and I ran with it. And I have, I have been thrown out of meetings. I have really, I'm wearing armor today because last year, the gay parade, I was afraid to go and tape because I have caused so much trouble with them. So I wanted to I investigated where I could find a cheap body armor and just go down there and be in their face like, here I am, I'm prepared, okay? So I couldn't find it, but there's one up there and I'm wearing it, okay? Here I am. So look at it. 100 bucks. 100 bucks. Now, if anybody really cares about my coverage, they could help me buy it if you want. Okay, so 100 bucks. So the registry is an invitation to citizens who have an interest in media, in press, in journalism, students, high school students, college students, seniors. I'm a senior, okay? So I'm not the norm, and my whole apartment is a studio, okay? And so what you do is take a cable access class in your local town while they still exist, okay? 25 bucks, and then come to me and you can get a press pass, okay? Which is what I have here. Now, I took a lot of hits on putting this press pass together, and I have a lot of funny stories. So please invite me to your group, and I would love to share those stories. The thing is, the press pass is cheap, 25 bucks, but what we do is not cheap, okay? So it has, so I'm just saying, the State House, after all my work, okay, and banging heads with the reps, senators, or whatever, is not under public record law. That's the legislative branch of our government. Not only that, it hasn't been under it since the 1800s. But I was told they took themselves out in the 80s. So I ran with that, and that was my argument. And in 2010, I actually walked around and delivered a pink slip to the entire State House, all to everybody up there, saying they had failed to keep the public record. And but what I discovered is there's really like 5 states who really are compliant with legislative public record law. And this is the nature of the problem of why we are seeing so many things get by us, so many stupid bills get by us, and in a time of digital excellence, okay, there is no excuse for these people to not be videotaping the public hearings. In fact, I went up and covered children and families for 4 hours, and I was going to just take a few pictures, but my phone went nuts, so I thought, I'm doing one start of Facebook Live, and I will cover the first speaker, and that will be my marker. Ended up, I covered 4 hours Facebook Live, which means COMFLM Registry News, okay, is now breaking news. I can compete with CBS and everything. What is that saying to you? We have been empowered, okay? Facebook is not a problem. Right now, Facebook is breaking news. It's your opportunity to seize the day. Corpus Deum, let's do it. Become a member. I have cards over here. Share my card with your group and assign a person in your group to become a member. They get to go in and cover the enemy stuff as press. How about that? And then they come back with the news, and guess what? The field is leveled. So I've covered so many hearings. I covered a lot of mass resistance stuff, and they used to say, you're mass resistant. I say, no, I'm Catch of the Day Video News. That's my media name, and I have COMFLM Registry News, and I'm an independent press person. So I'm really asking you, please respect what I'm saying. John Abramson's a member, Dave Kopez, Chris Mader, Valley Patriot News. Why? Because I I went into the court and covered a really sneaky case for him. And he said, I think I better become a member of your group. I said, I think you do. Okay, so he's a member. So what I want is all freelance press to become a member of this. I want 351 members, one in every town. Okay, and then when there's a story, that story's going to get covered. So that's what I have to say. It's been a fabulous day. Please support CR News, COMFLM Registry News, the Coalition to Preserve the Public Record, a public library like Lexis that I'm trying to establish with all kinds of public record documents. Thank you.
Thank you.